Ladies and gentlemen, where are the Dutch global high-tech, and I cannot use the word startup, that's what you told me, I need to use the word scale-up, but I'm not going to use those words because even after 15 years, we were still called a startup. Yeah? We employed thousands of people and made a decent profit, but we're still a startup. Now, I'd like to talk about emerging companies in an emerging economy. Because I think the boundaries and between an incubator, an accelerator, or a scale-up are pretty vague. It depends on the type of company. So let's talk about emerging companies. Where are they? Where are the global heroes? I think why aren't there more global hardware heroes from our country? I mean, we have great technical universities. We have great technological institutions like TNO, the Hall Center. We have great international high-tech companies, and somehow it doesn't seem to work. When we look at the United States, you have great examples like Oculus, acquired by Facebook, $2 billion. We have GoPro, the action camera, $2 billion, market cap, hundreds of people working. Tesla, thousands of people working, still not making any money, people pouring money into it. And so something's happening there that doesn't happen here. And that's a problem. And I think it's a big problem because we do have examples where things worked. I think Shapeways moved out of Philips, it's 3D printing, moved to New York. Hundreds of people working now, $50 million of turnover. It's there. It used to be Dutch. I feel it's still Dutch, but it's not here. So I think we have to then look back and step back and think about emerging companies have life cycles. And in those life cycles, I said it before, there are different phases. You have the incubator phase, you have a proof of concept, an idea. You try to find somebody interested, try to find money, to create a business plan, build a prototype, and try to find customers. And it all, more or less, you cannot say from one phase to the other phase. Sometimes it just blends phase to phase. But there's one thing I think that is really, when I look at ASML, that's really important if you want to highlight a point of success, a critical success factor. And that is that you need to create a support infrastructure. There needs to be an infrastructure throughout those phases as an emerging company. And I think when you look at ASML, we started 32 years ago. We were an incubator, an accelerator, a scale-up within Philips. And Philips in itself, really, they were not that interested in us, to be very honest, because they let us to do our own thing. We were these crazy people, 50 people in a barrack that thought of something crazy. But there was a support infrastructure. We could pick up the phone and we could call a person in the net lab. We could call a person in the machine factories. We could call upon people in the Philips supply chain. And the crazy people with the crazy dreams, they actually got a bit of support. And the support infrastructure was there throughout 10 years. Let's be very honest, hardware is hard. It's not simple. Hardware takes very often a very long time. But when it works, it's there to stay. It's not a web app that's being replaced by the next web app a month after it was launched. This is the kind of technology, the hardware, when it is a functional solution, is there to stay. And that's where we're very grateful. We're grateful that there were people there with a vision. And there was a support infrastructure that we could use. Extremely important. It was largely within Philips. So Philips, you could say, was at that moment in time, and I think there are many examples, of probably the best European incubator. There. Because think about the companies that came out of Philips. It's massive. And I think that support infrastructure, perhaps we should look at that. So what made us successful at that time? What made us to become a company from 50 people now to 15,000 people? The first 2 million to about 6 billion sales now. So it's a success story, yes. But I think it is absolutely the basis was formed through that support infrastructure. Now, do we have that support infrastructure in the Dutch emerging company scene? I think there are many good initiatives. You have High-Tech XL. You have Startup Delta, very good initiatives. You have the incubator programs in the university, yes, Delft. You have Bright Move in Eindhoven. But but it's all patched. It's a patchwork. Yeah? And how do we organize this? How do we bring this together? And the startup scene or the emerging company scene is very heterogeneous. It's not a homogeneous scene. There are startups in pharma, in medical, in web app, in hardware. How do you bring it all together? I think it is very important, as we as a company feel, very important to focus. So I think that's why the Make Next platform is about the mark industry, the manufacturing industry. Yeah? Put those people together because competencies in that industry are very often very similar. Yeah? Physics, chemistry, manufacturing knowledge, science, mathematics, software, embedded software. Those are all competencies that the manufacturing industry shares. And I think that's why it's very important that within that framework of startup companies, you can have pillars of excellence. Yeah? Whether it's the make industry or whether it's the game industry or whether it's pharma or whether it's medical, it doesn't really matter. So, some people say when you look at how difficult it is to get companies emerging, that it's all about money. There's no money. Well, I can assure you, there is money galore. There's money enough. I'm on the advisory committee of the investment committee of one of the Dutch biggest pension fund, and we talk about this. I said, we have money, but where to put it? Yeah? And, of course, you have a fiduciary responsibility that you don't want to throw money into a deep pit and without knowing where it ends. So, it's not about money. It's about credibility. How do you create the credibility as an emerging company that investors want to take the risk to invest in your company? Now, when you look at Silicon Valley, you go to Sand Hill Road where all the venture capitalists are, those are not financially skilled people. They're industrial people. They're people with the background in industry. They can assess technology. They can gauge whether the technology is really something worthwhile. They have a network that's incredible. They can pick up the phone and call anybody, yeah, and say, why don't you come in and try to validate this idea with us? I mean, this is about credibility. Yeah? And when we create credibility, suppose Shapeways would have been able, yeah, to get validated, vetted by a renowned industrial partner that this is feasible. You think that they would have gone to the US for money? How much easier is it to pick up the phone here at Netherlands and call a couple of people in the network, and the money will be there? I can guarantee you. So, what do we need to change? I think we need to change something. It's obvious, and it's if you listen to me, it's about the support infrastructure. And you can say, okay, dear ASML, what are you doing? Well, we do several things. You know, we do things in what people would call an incubator or an acceleration phase. Yes, we have what we call the ASML Makers Award, which is for entrepreneurial students to come up with great ideas. We have this annual award, which is a great success. People like it. We are investigating closer cooperation with High Tech XL. We are supporting also Brightmove from the university in Eindhoven with ideas and with people and with knowledge. In the, let's say, scale-up phase, when you start to look for customers, we do also put money to work. You know, we've invested money in a company called Lightech. You know. Not that much, a couple of million, but it helps them to go to the next phase. Very important. I think it's also very important that we create that network, and that network, this is what we're talking about now, it is not only to help startups or to help these emerging companies to grow bigger, because it's not out of altruism that we do things. We do this also out of own interest. It's very important that those companies with specific competencies, and our technology is difficult, which continuously develops and evolves, and we need more of different type of competencies over time. So we look at these smaller companies with very specific knowledge, and we have a couple of examples where we started to help those companies as a launching customer. ProDrive is a good example. 15 years ago, big company now, hundreds of people, tens of millions of sales. So we also do that. And it brings us to where we are today. Actually, this is where Make Next comes in. Like I said, it should be a part of an integrated approach in this country to deal with emerging companies. And we will focus on the industrial industry, on the market industry. And at its core, Make Next is a meeting place. It's a place where people get together, where renowned and experienced companies can meet emerging companies, and they can share, they can learn, they can come for advice, for expertise, for knowledge, and not only on the technical side. It's very often on the organizational side. It's on how do I deal with intellectual property. Those are the things that we can really help, and we can bring companies forward. Like we were brought forward within Philips because that knowledge was there. And I think this is what we want to be. We want to be sparing partners. We want to be partners to create credibility, and then the money will come. So let's make the next thing happen. Thank you very much.